Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Difference Maker podcast. I'm your host, Matt Calderoni. This week, we've got another awesome guest on our show, Brandon Naurato. Brandon's been a friend of mine for the last, I think since 2018. We've been jamming over it and just talking about everything to do with human development, personal development, hockey, sports, Pep Guardiola, everything and anything that you can imagine that comes into the conversation essentially of sports. So Nar, glad to have a good mind on the show. I'm glad to finally get you on because I feel like this is 3 years in the making. And it's good, dude. It's good to finally get this going. Catch us up, teach us what you've been up to, and let's go from there.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. It's the off season now, so studying the game, putting some style of play stuff together for next year, getting ready for all the summer development stuff, and working with some different pro guys. People keep asking me if I'm still doing that kind of stuff since I've taken the coaching job, but I just really enjoy working with the pros. It's guys that I've been with for a long time, and I learn just as much from them, hopefully, as they learn from me. So just trying to stay up ahead of it in that area and try out some new drills and some movements and decision making stuff, and yeah, just going from there. It's been fun.
No, I like it, man. Dude, you've always been somebody that's on a serious side, always been able to just pivot and do what you've had to do and get it done, which is admirable. And I wanted you to share that a bit, man, because you've got a very interesting story, dude, of how you got to where you are. And I want to start with that because I feel like it gives a good landscape and a good understanding of A, the knowledge that you have, and B, more importantly, the hustle that you have to get there. This wasn't something handed to you and whatnot. So teach us a bit about it, man. You've obviously got, or take us through your story. Let's say where you started, how you got into Detroit, then how you got into Michigan. Teach us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I kind of where it started when I got done playing, I was going to coach, and I've told this story before, so I'll try and abbreviate it. But
Sure.
I applied for a USHL assistant coaching job, made it to the top five, not the top three, asked for some feedback, and they basically just said to network up. So I was actually going to move to Alabama, Huntsville, and be the volunteer assistant coach and run hockey operations for Total Package Hockey. So really wearing 19 hats for one gig. I've got a great wife, and she was all about taking me up on that offer and going. And then I ran a 1 week goal scoring camp, and probably it wasn't about the money at all, but made the same amount of money in 1 week that I would have made in 6 months with the job I was about to take.
Wow.
And just really enjoyed working with the kids. What I knew at that time isn't close to how it's progressed, but I called my old partner Nathan Bowen at TPH and said, "Why don't we start in Detroit?" And then that morphed into summer camps and prospect tournaments, and then we started the first online academy in the United States, the Detroit Center of Excellence. And then from there, that's where you really start honing your craft. I mean, you're on the ice two,
Yeah.
3 times a day for 9 months during the school year, and then you have your summer camps. So the more you do something, the better you get at it. You're always making tweaks and adjustments. And then from there, I was talking to Chris Draper one day. They were looking for a skills coach for Detroit. Basically, what it was is go to Grand Rapids 1 day a week, do the summer development with the prospects. Really had nothing to do with the Red Wings. And then it just kind of morphed from there. Getting Draper's attention was, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. every day for 6 years and just watched every goal scored in the NHL and then just manually tracked it. And when you do that, it teaches the game. If the goal is the end result, what's the 15 to 20 second sequence leading up to it? And then how can we replicate this? And then just watching the best players in the world from an individual development standpoint. Well, if these guys keep doing this, and this is how they break pressure, we should probably teach kids how to do this. So I'm just about, there's always a solution to any problem or issue. How do we move back the sequence of events to find that solution? And then just continuing to be the best version of myself, or educating yourself every day by talking to people that are smarter than you or at different areas of the game. I think you can learn just as much from a mite coach as you can from an NHL coach. My little guy's going through it right now. He's 7 years old, and it's been a challenge. You've worked in the NHL and work at Michigan now. It doesn't mean you can coach mite hockey. But really what it goes comes back to, and it's like truest form, is how do people learn? How can you teach and gain trust from a 7-year-old or a 27-year-old NHL All-Star? And it's through your language, your body language, your verbiage, and then just gaining their trust by letting them know that you're there for them, and whether it's a big or small task, you can help them problem solve.
No, man, that's huge because like even just hearing, like I wrote a lot of stuff down just on your hustle. So it sounds like you've got, man, four major principles that it is. And if I could sum them up in 4 words or 4 topics, dude, it's like details, fundamentals, solution, focus, and knowledge. Honestly, dude, like you've been fantastic at, even just from knowing you as long as I have, always finding a way and like always moving forwards, which is super, super important. And then more importantly, dude, like what I like about the conversations that we have a lot of the time is that you're not somebody that just stays within your own sport, right? And we're going to pivot back to development in a second, but I've noticed, Nar, that you're somebody that really takes inspiration. Like we've shared the conversations before from like English Premier League soccer, or you take like different coaching philosophies and apply them and bring them back to sport. Why do you feel that is? I know obviously for like different kinds of, we'll call it inspiration, but why is that, in your opinion, a key to what you're doing behind your success?
I would say, so like, I'm not a huge soccer guy. Like I would say, being Italian, my dad played, my grandpa played, but when I say they played high school soccer.
Sure.
So it was around our family, but like, I'm not super educated on it. I started studying it just for spatial awareness and movement and decision making, and then I came across Pep Guardiola, and even through this podcast, I'm kind of learning things about myself as I talk. But like, it wasn't that he was playing a different style and anything that had to do with the style at first. It was that he was an innovator. He thought outside the box. He didn't follow the traditional path. And not that there's anything wrong with the traditional path, but everyone has their own. So I don't want to make this up, but he was basically with the C-level team. They loved him. He did great things, tight with the owner, and he gained trust and belief. Now he gets the big gig and he does it, and he's perceived to be the best in the world. From the online, like how did we start TPH Online Academy? I Googled online schooling. So like it's not like I came up and my dad's a principal and my mom's a superintendent, like you're outside your comfort zone trying to find solutions to these problems of getting to the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think what drives me is I don't know if being different is the right verbiage, but just being ahead of it. And then at the same time, with the game of hockey, nobody's reinventing the wheel, and I'm not claiming to, but I want to be able to provide value and do something that other people don't do. And now looking back, and I don't like talking about myself, but like there's 100+ online academies across the United States, some great, some okay. But it's just like anything. If you send me your style of play for an NHL team, that doesn't mean I can get my players to do it. So it's not about a drill or a theme. It's more about, like, how did you present this information? What type of drills did you do? What were the key details inside of it? How did you hold the players accountable? Like it's video, it's practice planning, it's recruiting the right type of players, it's working with guys like yourself to understand how to communicate to different players in different ways and get the most out of them. I'm far from having it all figured out and just trying to be a student every day, but I just enjoy mentoring people and thinking outside the box. And I've put myself in situations where when it doesn't work, when I think outside the box, that's okay. I'm not losing my job.
For sure.
So,
man, have you heard of project books by chance?
I have not.
So this was something that Jim Rohn came up with like way back. And it's basically like, he's like, okay, you probably heard some kind of rendition of it, but he's like, I keep a working document open. Every time I have a new discovery, I put it in there, I note it, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, by the end of it all, like you literally flip back on the 365th day of the year and you look at it and you're like, wow, I've got it. And it like literally just by learning an entire new program and my observations and my mess ups and whatever. Some people call it, man, like decision journals. Some people like write out all the decisions, how did it work and so on. But dude, like I think this is where people miss the mark a lot with this stuff is like, it's just a constant, like true innovation, man, is hearing things, getting curious about it and discovering it about yourself. Right. And then it's like, you apply. Did it work? Did it not? Okay, cool. Note it down. What's the tweak you can make? Right. And it's like, I feel like this is, I know exactly what you're talking about, man, because even on our side with the mental part, it's like, everybody's still going off of certain Freudian principles. And it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's like, have you thought different about it? Have you ever tried to look at things on the angle that's just slightly off instead of dead on, and you can see so much more, right? And it's like, that's hard to friggin' do, man, especially when you're in a spot where you're A, in a prestigious job, but B, more importantly, you're dealing with some of the best in the world at what they do. Like you're not training this on just amateurs. Like you're training this on the best people ever. So man, like your process with that and like, what do you do? How do you, let's give some coaches advice for a second here. How do you implement something new like that? How do you have the balls to do that? Like where does that come from with you? Like, are you looking at it where it's saying, hey, I'm going to test it a couple days, see if it works, and I take my notes on it? Or are you just like, to hell with it, like go all in, see what happens, and then go from there? What's your take on that?
You surround yourself with people that allow you to do it, and job titles that it's not about the title, but if you surround yourself in an environment with people that you can grow with, because you're always throwing out different ideas. Like in Detroit, whatever the organizational depth chart is, like I was at the bottom, but I loved it because I was around so many smart people and smart in different areas. You can take something from the analytics guys, management, player development, coaching, and then a ton of other little things inside of those big buckets. But I think if you're the dumbest person in the room, that's a good room,
100%.
And then once you continue to earn respect to your place in that room, and then you leave it, you'd hope that you always have these people that or these relationships that you've built that you can keep progressing forward.
Yeah. No, man, it's a good point. Like, I feel like not a lot of people even go in with that mindset of, am I working with people, not for, but with people that are going to let me like try new things, do my thing, like make my mistakes at times, because that's where innovation happens. It's funny. I was talking to a colleague about it the other day, man. And it's like, if you actually study, I know this isn't aha kind of info, but if you actually study the most successful people in the world, the mistake making process actually takes up the majority of their time, and the solution process, man, actually takes up the smallest amount of their time, which is insane. Right. And it's like, you look at guys like a Steve Jobs or a top coach in the world, whatever, like that ability to have like 70% of your time focused on mistake making and 30% of your time focused on implementation and like tweaking. That's insane when you think about it. You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk innovation, it's hard. Yeah, absolutely.
So like, I don't tell people that, like for my summer camps, if I do a new drill, I'm asking the feedback of the players on whatever task we're trying to accomplish, or did they like the drill? Did they get enough reps? Are they working hard enough? Like there's a million variables that go into it. But at the end of the day, if they don't like it, I just never do it again. And if they do like it, I ask what part they liked about it. So I'm learning through their answers, and then you move forward. Like I don't know if it's a hockey thing or it came from somewhere else, but like coaches will talk about like rob and do. Like, I'm going to rob your drill and I'm going to do it. I'm going to rob your style of play and I'm going to do it. Like it actually drives me nuts. It's lazy. It doesn't mean that there's drills that are recycled in athletics all the time, especially hockey, and that's great. But like, put your own spin on it. Ask the coach the details inside of it so that you rob and do it right. You know what I'm saying? Versus just taking it and it's like, like, I'm not a politician and I don't talk about religion, but like, you can't fight the Republican argument unless you understand the Democrats' point of view, or you just sound uneducated. Like, you need to understand both sides. So if I'm presenting something new to an old school coach, I have to understand his mentality so that I understand what solutions I can give him to get me to do this. And I don't tell him it's a new idea. I'll act as if I've done it for years, but I think you have to be comfortable failing forward. And what I mean is, if I try a new style of play, face-off play, or a pre-scout against a team, or a new drill, and it doesn't work out well, I'm fine with that, even as the
Mm-hmm.
assistant coach. And I'll take the feedback from the other guys of why it didn't, and then I'll get better and I'll do it again. Versus I'm throwing this out the window.
Yes.
But like you have to be okay with failure to move forward. You're not going to come up with a drill the first time and it's going to be perfect. I've got 17 variations to different drills, and it's because hopefully I've made it better.
A
So like
hundred
when
and
I go
man.
out and do like a practice plan, if I do 3 skates in a row and I do the same drills, how much better am I at doing those drills? Now, the drills may tweak a bit, but I'm way
Yes.
better at explaining it. Maybe I over explained it. Maybe it was too simple or whatever. And then, you get the feedback and you figure it out.
Man, you know what's funny about it too? So I heard this from a speaker and I noticed it actually comes into coaching. He's like, so if you just literally focus 100% of your time on giving your energy to your audience, it's going to be like, you're going to be fine if you actually prepare to know your stuff. But the
Yeah.
other side, because he's like, and this is so true, man. It's like, let's pretend you are laying out a drill or us laying out a session and you don't hit something and execute it exactly the way you wanted. No one knows, right?
Yeah.
Like the only person that really knows at the end of the day is you. And
Yeah.
then you end up beating yourself up and so on. And it's like, if you look at these best in the world at what they just roll, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, mistake happened. Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Here, let me fix it and go from there. But it's like, it's a quick fix and they move on. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you two things. Number one, so what was that term you used? Robin what?
Robin do.
Robin do. So you were saying like, some people don't let that happen and so on, or don't try these new things and whatnot. Do you feel that's an ego thing? Do you feel that's a fear thing? Like, what do you feel that holds a lot of coaches in your situation back from actually trying to innovate and implement?
I would say one thing that might hold them back is just there's information that hasn't been available to them yet, so they just don't know.
Yep.
And then the other thing would be insecurities, and now you're faking it.
Makes total
You're
sense.
insecure about your coaching style or development method, so you try and act smart. Deep down you don't know how to fix this person. You just know how to regurgitate information that you read or listened to.
Yeah. And you don't know the true core.
Yeah, it's
See,
like
that's, and that,
it
go ahead.
doesn't. It does. Our NHL coaches are NHL coaches for a reason. They know
Yep.
more than the youth coach for a reason. But it doesn't mean that a youth coach can't be an NHL coach,
No.
right? But like, there's things that happen in youth hockey that progress to junior, college, pro, whatever, that you just don't know yet. As an
Yeah.
example, Leo's 7 years old. Am I pre-scouting the other 7-year-old team that we're playing? Well, that's a part of coaching. So if you're in youth hockey and you've never pre-scouted an opponent, how could you be a junior coach? It doesn't mean you don't
True.
have the skills to do it, but if there's 10 people to teach you how to do it, they're all at different levels. And if you happen to be in a position to get with the top guy right away and learn from them, man, you're further ahead to then
Yeah.
hone your craft, make it better and better so that you're great at that particular area. I'm not saying I'm good or not. You'd have to ask
Mm-hmm.
the players if I prep them properly. But I had never run a pre-scout meeting until I got to Michigan. But I listened to some rock star coaches do it for 3 years, every single day. And I
Yeah,
and I
man.
watched the players. Were they engaged? Did they get the message? Did it work that night? Was it the right message? Was it the wrong message? I think I could see something in a team that's completely wrong, but if I deliver my message properly and prepare my team, even if it's just mentality, I can get them to do what I want them to do.
Yes.
You know?
And dude, it's funny because like, so I just wrote this down and I'll ask you one more thing about systems in a sec, but modeling, right? And we talk about this a lot in like model your people and model stand on the shoulders of other giants and da da da. And it is a very good thing. I feel like a lot of people don't know the fine line between modeling and having imposter syndrome, right? And actually like being an imposter of what you're doing, because that's the thing, man. You hit the nail on the head. We see this all the time when it comes to, so everybody asks us the question, right? Like we run these resilience rank or profiles, sorry. And it always comes back. Like it's funny because some of the highly touted draft picks, players, individuals, most talented actually lack the most confidence in what we find. Their commitment is super high, right? Meaning they're going to stick with it, but their confidence is usually average. And everybody always asks the question, and they're like, "Well, why is that? Like, how could he have gotten here if his confidence isn't high?" It's like, guys, it's a very, very, very simple understanding. Every time you move to a new environment, number one, there's going to be a natural confidence hump, but number two, we know it's hunger and certainty that get people to the next level. And if you don't get taught how to have that certainty, and you're just watching other people around you, but you don't truly believe in it yourself, that's where players start to die. That's where everybody does, right? And it's like, I feel this whole thing, some people take it the complete wrong way when it comes down to modeling. And it's like, just take everything Nar does. Let's take what he does. And like, first off, I'm going to be flattered if somebody takes what we do. But secondly, it's like, I'm going to look at it and be like, okay, great. Tell me why you're doing it. Sometimes you can answer it simply, right? And it's like, well, I'm doing this because I'm getting to the root core of this and that. But a lot of the times it's that whole effect of, I don't know. And it's like, that's where people need to start thinking like modeling 2.0. You can't just take, you need to understand why. And if you understand why, it's like with pro athletes. Like we had a player the other day saying in the college level of basketball, he's like, I'm going to model Kevin Durant. It's like, great. Why? What are you taking from Kevin Durant? What specifically are you taking? And then more importantly, tell me why he does it. So he can get to the why of why he wanted it, but he's like, oh, I guess I should find out why he does it. And it's like, yeah. And I know it's an extra little tedious step, but dude, like I've seen you and watched you do this, and it's going to lead us into this data point in a second, but this is why you're good at what you do. I don't think there's been one time, Nar, that I've been able to speak with you and you haven't explained why. Why am I doing it? What's the purpose? How do I do it? You've found the surface level stuff, but you can go deeper on it. So coming from that, man, let me ask you this, and the last thing about these drills and systems and so on. If you are going to do, the whole rob and take and whatever and implement whatever method, I still can't get that down. But point is, if you're going to do that, man, where do you feel is the right amount to go to, and where do you feel it's the right amount to be like, I can't do this yet? Like, is it a why thing? Is it full on understanding it tip top to bottom? Like, teach us about that.
I think if you're just getting into it, whether you're 20 years old or starting coaching or whatever at 40, you've got to take in way too much information. You've got to do a ton of research. You've got to be thrown in the fire. You've got to try things out. I wasn't a businessman. Never run a business. I've never managed employees. From a development standpoint, I learned everything after my career was done. But being thrown in the fire and failing forward through it, I think taught me a ton. And at the end of the day, the reason I took pride in it is that it was my name on it. So like, even when I make mistakes, I'm gonna make it up to you, or I'm gonna show you that, it was an off day or like, and I was wrong, and just be honest. I was wrong. I'll be better. Not like I need to work harder. I'll find the solution. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
No, it's true, dude. You're bang on. And it's like, I think that's where people get that wrong too. It's like, work harder. It's like, nah, just find out why. Like, it's really that simple. You know how we always say like 95% of the time on the solution, 5% on the problem. Like, it really is that simple. People just don't practice it. Right. Last thing I was going to say when it comes down to that method too, I think, man, because we've had this convo before where people are sometimes like almost scared to share the information that they have, almost scared to share what they know. When in reality, if you really are one of the best at what you do, like we've talked about this in length, you're happy to share things. And it's not because you're some egotistical prick. It's because of the fact, man, that you're sitting here saying like, so-and-so can get better from this. I can move the game forward. I can do this. I think people mix this up a lot where they don't understand. Like, so it's like you and I. We know, Nar, probably a lot of things in our own respect, a lot of different tactics. People don't come to us for that. They come to us for our systems, right? They come to us for how Nar does it, the Matt way, the Brandon way, and so on. So when it comes down to that and finding and acquiring new skills, and if you're a new coach right now and you're trying to become somebody at an elite level, what advice do you have for them in regards to building their system? And more importantly, is it better to model these systems or come up with them on your own? What do you think?
Yeah, you need your own system. You need to have your own core beliefs. That's what I meant. Like, it kind of goes back to your other question. When you're just starting out, you need to take it all in. You need to figure out even who are the biggest influencers in the space, whatever the space may be. These are people I'm going to learn from. And it may start on Twitter, and then you buy a course, and then you go to a seminar. And then through all those things, you meet new people. You develop relationships. You go into business with somebody, you get burned, you learn from it. You go into business with someone else, you have success. I'm just super intrigued by what makes people great. And it's not that LeBron James has the best jump shot or he's a great dribbler. Like, it's things way deeper that, what drives him? How does he
Yeah.
pull it out of himself? Everybody deals with
Yes.
adversity. Like, Sidney Crosby's arguably the best player in the world, or Connor McDavid. You think they've never felt adversity? Like McDavid, the injury he came back from, it's unbelievable. Like, people are like, oh, he worked really hard. You're like, I have no clue. And outside of watching a documentary, like, they don't understand the pain it took him to go through for months and months and months just to play hockey again, let alone continue to be the best player in the world, arguably. So
Agreed.
like, your adversity might be getting cut from the U16 team, but that feeling feels the same way as getting sent to the American League or losing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's all relevant. And then it's what you put in your own head. So,
Yeah.
I think I've gotten better as you get older at turning the page quick and, not like, I always look in the mirror if something doesn't go my way first, but when you're dealing with different types of people too, it's not that it's them or you, but there might just be something off there. So you can't take it all personally. What works for one person may not work for the next. But if you have your
Yeah.
core beliefs and you've got a plan or a process, I think it's a start, because you always know what to go back to. So,
For sure. It's just not letting the war in your own head become the one that's in your life, right? And that's important. And it's simple stuff. Well, to turn topics and pivot quickly. So let's talk about some good sides behind your innovation piece right now. So you're big on data right now. You're big on innovation when it comes to that. Teach us a little bit about what you've been digging into, and then we'll get into specifics.
I just think data drives everything, and I always give this disclaimer that I'm not a data scientist. I can't create visualization tools in Tableau or R, but I'm really good at explaining to rocket scientist people or whatever that here's what I'm looking for, and can you accomplish this with your skill set? So through that, did some stuff in Detroit to create some apps that was pretty cool, and then bringing that to Michigan now from an analytic and sports science department end. And I think it could be special, but I always give the analogy of like, it's like, hey, we made $15 million in our business last year. But if you don't take pride in analytics or data, you won't know that you spent 20 and your business is bleeding. So how
Yep.
do you run a business without a simple P&L? Well, that's data.
Yes.
Like everything is data. And in hockey, when you look at it long enough, you know what's relevant and what isn't. Similar to you working with an individual, you know where you're always going to start. And then if you don't get the solution you want from that problem, you're going to go to step 2, 3, 4, 5. For me,
Yeah.
if the data stands out a certain way, I know where to look next, which is the video. Then I've got to tell a story to the player to get them to buy into a change, an add on, whatever it may be. But, I think you can get lost in this stuff, but I think it's relevant. I mean, when you do your resilience rankings, those answers are information, i.e.,
Yeah.
data, that allows you to build a curriculum for your athletes versus you wasting 3 or 4 calls and it speeds up your time.
Yes,
It's a
man.
time
It
saver.
speeds it. And dude, the thing is too, because so again, we're no data specialists either. We just like you, man. We've created a tool. We know what to look for. We know where to look. We know why to look there, and so on. And it's like what's interesting about that, man, is that I feel like people don't know those steps in it, like where to look. And it's like they know what to look for, but they don't know where to look for it. And the problem, or where to even go next. And the problem that starts to come with that is like now you've got so many inputs, right? And it's all coming at you. And it's like, hey, is it this? Is it that? Is it this? And then you start to create a story like you've mentioned, but the story doesn't ever make sense. And I
Yeah.
think this is where I'm a firm believer, man. And my brother and I have been talking about this a lot, where it's like, we need to really start to marry this relationship between like the practitioners in our sense, like ourselves, the data people, the mathematics, the this and that. And we need to bring it together because still, man, it's a very siloed thing, right? Like it's a very like, oh, you got strength and conditioning data, keep it there. You got mental data, keep it there. You got development and skills data, you keep it there. When really it's like, but what's the story it tells us all together? Okay, so if he's belting it in the gym right now, he's okay on the ice, and mentally we see that he's burning out. What's that story compared to he's really good in the gym? Right.
Yeah.
And like we look at it that versus me, where it's like I could look at him and be like, mentally, he's really not good right now, but he's doing well in the gym and he's okay on the ice. Let's use those as outlets as a way to help him on the mental side. Right. So it's interesting, man, because there's so much to play with, but it really does take a collaborative understanding. So I want to know from you, Nar, like these where to look points for you personally. How do you discover those? And, or let me ask you a better question. Is it coming off of personal experience? Is it coming off of your own manual you kind of written? Teach us a bit about how you know where to pinpoint those parts, because you've really done a good job at using data. You really have.
I think it's research. Who was saying it recently? It's like 99% of the work goes into like 1% of the like you're failing 99% of the time to find the 1%, but the only reason you found it is because you've gone through everything else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Like the
Like
70% on
it was
mistakes thing.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
watching every NHL goal for 6 years at 5 a.m. Like that's the only way to do it, because if it's too small of a sample size, like you're not going to find it, right? So once you do
Yes.
that, and then what I've always liked to do is when I'm on something new, I like to share it, just like a good book
Yes.
or a good movie. And the reason I like to share it is for myself. Like I want people that I trust to throw darts at it and to question
Yep.
me. And then if we can go back and forth, the more research I've done, which means and data, the more information I have, then I can start to tell a story, not to trick them into what I'm believing, but that we can do this. Like
Yes.
Pep Guardiola's style of play or the Colorado Avalanche, it doesn't work for every team. It's based on their personnel. And they've been doing it for years. Even when the Avs weren't making the playoffs, they were bought into this style, right? So, like, I'll give you another analogy. I'm on topic, but off. If you and
Sure.
I won the lottery and we buy a junior team or an NHL team, and we're
Sure.
saying we've got the option to keep all the people that are here now, add, subtract, whatever, or wipe the slate clean. Like, if people don't think the way holistically that we think on what we want for our team to win now, to rebuild and win in 5 years, they have to go. The option isn't, hey, can you work with this guy to help him can you work with this scout to help him understand what you want him to see? No, I can't. I'm just going to hire a scout that already sees it.
100%. Pay for speed.
Like it's time, speed, man, time.
Yeah.
So
And man, it's funny you said that, because it's like I think people neglect that part, because ultimately what we're doing, man, and we'll talk about it right now. So you really look at the best in the world and they do three things. Number one, they know pattern recognition, right? I recognize this pattern like you've done. I know exactly what it is. I know when he goes at this spot on the ice, this usually happens, da da da. Okay, pattern recognition. I know when he's thinking in the past, he's probably going to be more depressed than if he's thinking in the future. Great. Okay. The second thing they do is pattern utilization, right? You know how to use these patterns. Nara's seeing them. He's taking them down before, taking notes, so on. Fantastic. The last part, though, man, that only the 10% do is pattern creation. And pattern
yeah,
creation is where you take the utilization, you take the understanding of it, you put it together, and you're like, this is the system. And you can't have that without, like you said, watching NHL goals for 5, 6 years at 5 a.m. I couldn't have that by not going through 2,500 friggin' data points in these resilience profiles for the last 4 years to figure out what it is, and then finally create a story that explains it and backs it up and so on. I think people don't realize that there's power in patterns, but the most powerful of all is being able to create your own and to move forwards with that. So let me ask you this to kind of keep a wrap up topic on it. We've talked about your development. You've done fantastic stuff with it. We've talked about the skills in your systems. How have you now been able to marry the data part with the skills part, let's call it, like the more, eye training or test or whatever you want to call it on there? How have you married those two together to actually help you compel a story? Like, teach us a bit about where you're at.
it's not as much data with skills as it is data with style of play. And I'll give like a
Mm-hmm.
simple analogy. Like if all the goals in the NHL are scored at the net front, where did they come from before that? So right in front of the net, 3 feet around the net, 42% of goals are scored. So what happened before that shot at the net that led to it? These are the sequence of events. What was the origin? Was it passed from outside the dots at the blue line, in the corner, behind the net, in the middle of the ice? Like, and then when you create an app and scrape data, you can find these things quicker versus me typing on a keyboard and manually tracking,
Yes, bro.
right? That's where the data scientists come in. So it changed my life.
Yeah.
So again, speed, but everything's just backtracked. Then what were the two passes or two sequence of events that happened before the goal was scored? And then you go into spacing and filling space, and then you'd have to study different types of D zone coverage based on where the puck is and how do we beat it. And then and you talk to people in the press box, the management box, you talk to people on the ice during practice, in game, in the coaching room, in between periods, like, and you just figure it out. And nobody's got it all figured out, but throughout the course of events, it all comes together. And even now, there's no perfect play every time. I joke with the guys all the time, like, it's easy for me to pause, fast forward, rewind, and act like I know what I'm talking about. It's completely different when you're in game action and you have to make live decisions. So that's where the development part comes in, and the whole constraints led approach. How do I design drills, another skill, to put our guys in situations to play the way that we want to play? Yes. And again, if I had a perfect formula, I'd share it and sell it. I don't. Like, you're constantly trying to figure it out. We have 13 freshmen next year. It's going to be different. But that's what I'm most excited about is molding them early.
Yes.
You know,
and bro, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the one other thing I'd say, going back to your other question, is like, if I could give anyone advice, like, more than anything, be a fixer. Like, there's people in this world that can present in a PowerPoint, get up on stage, and they sound really smart, but can they fix someone's mental resilience? Can they go to a team and get them to score 30 more goals on the season and then explain why? And then again, you're moving, like, if you're a fixer, you're everything. I can go learn a golf swing or how to shoot a puck from anybody, but, like, can they fix what I'm doing now? And can they fix it quick? That's the biggest thing for me.
So now, are you calling me a fixer?
You are a fixer.
No, my point is, oh man, you nailed it on the head.
You need to want to be fixed, though. The only people that you can't fix, or I can't, are people that don't want to be fixed.
Well, man, and even to go back on that, so there's two things I want to unpack on that, and then we'll wrap this up. But number one, so this whole part, I think what people miss sometimes on data is fantastic for getting to the freaking root. And it's so important, man. Like, people ask us, why do you do this profile? There's personality profiles out there. It's like, listen, dummy, I don't want to label somebody. I don't care what their blue, red, yellow, green, pink, orange, black, brown personality is. I care about what their current rankings are, because here's the thing. People don't realize, but any kind of personality you can absolutely coach. I do it for a living. So anybody that wants to argue it, I will by all means take them on for that, number one. Number two, the other thing is understanding, though, it's like you said, thinking backwards is so powerful, man. So we had an NHLer actually come up to us the other day talking about us how, and this isn't a slant, it's an absolute case study right now. This is real relevant time. Come to us and say, oh, I was working with a sports psych this past year, didn't work out too well. I said, why is that? He goes, because this person basically told me, you've got to stop doing that. And it's like, okay, so what was the thing you got to stop doing? And it's like, well, I'm being too emotional and I snap out, whatever. It's like, okay, great. So any individual, like he said to me, would think he's got to be able to control his emotions. So we went and ran him through our profiling. We're like, hold on a second. Yes, your emotional score isn't that great. However, what's even lower on that totem pole is your discipline. Has anybody ever taught you how to be disciplined? No, not really. Okay, so let's talk about, why are you getting emotional, man? Well, things aren't working out the way I want to. Why is that? Well, there are plays on the ice that I know I should have done and I do 100 times over and over again that I'm not doing. Why is that? Well, I don't really have the consistency behind it. Why is that? Well, I haven't really been disciplined in my routines going forward and so on. So it has nothing to do with emotional control and everything to do with learning how to be disciplined. And this is what people don't realize. That data is nothing more, like you can call it a baseline for us or whatever. That is nothing more for us than a tool to get to the absolute cause of something. Or if there's relevant scores that are all the same and all low, let's say, and there's 5 high ones and 4 low ones, we want to go and do exactly what you said, Nar. Like that ability to walk around. I think people don't realize you really need to walk around and collect stories in order to truly put one together. Like you said, there's so many pieces, right? And I forget who I was talking to the other day that was saying this beautifully to me, but he's like, people don't realize like going to one coach and getting a story and another coach and a story and another coach's story, that's called groupthink. It's just that walking over to do it with somebody and it's not happening in a boardroom. That's how you get through ideas, right? So it's very much so about getting to the root cause. And the quicker you get to the cause, the quicker you fix the problem. And I love that you call it a fixer, because I feel like that is, not to put words in your mouth, but everything that it is, right? It's like, get to the cause of it. What's the issue? What's the solution? What's the data to back it up? Great. Here's the story. Now let's put it in a book so that we never do that same mistake again. Right. Yeah. And it's like, once you have that, man, this is how companies innovate, teams innovate, and so on. But I love it, man. Like, dude, I could talk about this stuff for hours with you, but unfortunately we only have so much time. The good thing is this though, dude, you've always got innovative ideas. You're always up to something, which is always nice to see, because that means you're growing for the spirit and simple way that you love it. And that's the best friggin' way to do it. Otherwise it just becomes a disaster. But honestly, dude, if you had to leave everybody with one last best piece of advice that you've ever gotten and one terrible piece of advice that you've gotten to teach and to innovate, what would those two things be?
This is so clear. I would just say in any scenario, be yourself. Because if you're going to succeed or you're going to fail, you got to do it your way. If you're trying to be something that you're not, you're never going to win, because you've lost the first battle. You don't know who you are. You taught me that. That's what I do with players with like video analysis. First thing I do is I show them who they are. Not what's wrong with them, not, like, here's why you're here. And these are positives. Now, where can we add? So know who you are and learn to read the room. There's times to sit back and listen, and there's times to pound the table. And it's not about titles. It's about earning the respect to be able to pound the table, and then knowing your place when you need to listen.
I love that. Dude, I'll say the worst piece of advice I've ever gotten is that people can't change. Everyone can friggin' change. Nobody is mentally hardwired unless you are born with some kind of, dysform in any kind of way, physiologically and so on, chemical imbalance, whatever. But everybody can change if they want to, just like you said. Everybody can be coached. Everybody can do what they have to do. It depends on their commitment and what they want. So, man, this was absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to ask you where to find you, because you guys can find Nar where you found every other viewer on Twitter. Just type in his name. It'll be linked in the title, so you don't need to look for the spelling. Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you got to do, go find him. There's a lot of good stuff with him. And Nar, we'll have you on again, hopefully throughout the season, maybe at Christmas break when you have some time to breathe. But I love just hearing your anecdotes, man. Like, it's like always a constant case study with us. We're literally, after an episode like this, I'm enticed to want to go to a Word document and type it all out. Be like, hey, this was a finding, this was a finding, this was a finding. Study it for 6 months, see where we're at. You know what I mean? So it's good stuff, man. But we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Have a great one.